It's funny how, in São Paulo, the warehouse lights could make a stage seem limitless, while leaving you exposed as a beetle under glass. The stage paint was flaking, cheap. It stuck to the soles of my shoes, old white sneakers I had scuffed to hell running for buses, and that stuck momentarily in my mind, a weird, sharp focus. The audience was a handful of investors and a load of art students from nearby FAP. But all I saw as I looked across the spilled house lights were sardonic smiles. Alessandra was in the front, the kind of grin reserved for clowns and desperate men, coffee cup in hand, tapping her phone as I stammered through my pitch. I tried to sound passionate but measured. They told us that was key. My vision is to make painting. My tongue felt dry. I remember staring at the slides flickering on the projector behind me. Old colors from my series exploding into the wall, but the faces stayed neutral or worse, faintly amused. I want to use local paints, create murals that dissolve in sunlight and return. My voice cracked right at the word return. A man in a forest green suit cleared his throat, shooting a look to the woman from a gallery in Moema. She lifted her brow. "That's all very poetic," she said, "but what's the business model?" My answer jumbled out tangled. Partnerships with local shops, crowdfunding for public spaces. It's about integrating São Paulo into the art itself. Living color, shared ownership. I caught my reflection, nervous, thin, my hands fluttering, not helping, and the world seemed to contract to that ugly little crinkle of laughter from the back row. Whispers tumbled from Alessandra's side. I saw Antonio, my cousin, duck his head, avoiding my eyes. Years ago he'd told me, "Painting doesn't feed you, bro." That line came back, a cold slap. The pitch ended. The investors filed out, polite in that surgical way I'd come to expect, their eyes already on the next act. I stood for an awkward moment, brushing blue dust from my palms, pretending to check my phone. The disappointment settled over me. Not just professional, but personal, like the city itself was telling me to disappear. My family had been right, of course. They always had those little "I told you so's" couched in care. My mother, sighing into her vinaigrette at the kitchen table, saying, "If you just finished accounting, you'd have a salary, Eduardo." My sisters, rolling their eyes at another art plan. Most of all, my brother Paulo, who never talked about it, but packed his silence with judgment so full it weighed heavy in a room. I scraped out of the venue, Edificio Italia looming gray in the distance, buses groaning down Consolação, and didn't look back. The days grew somehow both frantic and empty after that. I painted in my small rented studio in Vila Mariana, but the voice in my head barely shut up. "Ridiculous," some gremlin said, over and over. The flopped pitch followed me around. In the paint shop's fluorescent glare, in the tin rattle of coins at the market, in bold type on the bills jammed under my door. Still, every morning, I woke up and faced the blank canvas. There was power in the ritual. I had a tender defiance for the city stretched out around me, vast and indifferent, humming with millions of stories. Some mornings, as I rolled primed canvas across the floor, I'd remember the words of my first art teacher, Dona Celia. "Steel yourself to the world, Edu, but keep your brush tender. Hardness outside, softness in the hand. That's how Brazil is." For a long time, those were just words. I hunkered, painting for galleries that never called back, entering contests never won. People liked my work, said it was interesting, but there was always a wall, one I didn't know how to break. I lived cheap, moved further out, Ipiranga, then forgotten streets behind the railway, ate rice and beans most nights, painting by the cracked glow of an old lamp. I texted my family US, then stopped altogether, tired of the little silences and passive suggestions. "There's a temp job in accounting at Louise's firm. Why not try? Just for a few months." I ignored the invitations to birthday churrascos. I didn't want to see the subtle pity in their eyes. But in that small space, I painted as if it mattered. I returned again and again to the idea from my pitch murals that would fade and return in sunlight. Dozens of failures lined my studio walls. I learned to mix pigments with earth, crushed glass, and bits of soapstone from old construction projects. The chemistry gave me hell. Sometimes the colors vanished entirely. But now and then a patch would hold. On those days I could almost hear my own heart, metallic but singing. One dawn, after a night spent scraping my hands raw over a chemical solution, I tried a mix with turmeric, basalt powder, and a binder of raw beeswax. As sunlight hit the surface through the window, a blush of red appeared as if conjured from nothing, and my pulse thudded with cautious hope. Money ran out. I took odd jobs, pedestrian surveys, helping a friend with moving. The studio was nearly lost to debt twice. One night, starving, I called my mother. "I'm okay," I lied, hearing her voice crackle down the line. "I'm working, still on the art, yeah, but working." She paused. "We're here, Edu. Come for dinner." I told her I was busy, another lie, and hung up, guilt roaring in my gut. Years passed in that rhythm. I stopped looking at social media. Where other artists posted residencies in Berlin, New York, São Paulo itself, I worked. Sometimes I hated the city. Its sickly haze over Avenida Paulista at dusk, the way bills seemed to reproduce in the mailbox. But I also loved its sprawl and its tenderness, the way no one ever gave you what you wanted unless you bled for it. Eventually, the right person saw my work. It was a fluke. My friend Carla, who hung a small canvas in her cafe in Liberdade, told me a curator wandered in. He left his card, Edu. He said he's with a design firm, looking for something new. I nearly didn't call. Rejection had made me cautious, but I did, folding my doubts into a single quivering outreach email. He answered within an hour. "Let's meet." A week later, we met at an empty bar downtown. He wore horned glasses and had the slow, careful patience of someone who'd been burned before. "You're doing something strange," he said, "but it's got teeth." He wanted to try a mural, one of my sunlight-activated pieces, on a glass building facade. It was a gamble for them and for me. When I finished the design, I spent a month experimenting, hunched in the late heat, burning my arms and staining my jeans. I felt at once broken and new. On the day of installation, crowds gathered. Workers suspended the framework, and Carla brought coffee. The first bus of tourists showed up, cameras at the ready, and when sunlight broke through between the clouds, a jagged river of red and gold burst across the front of the building. Shapes and faces swirling into sudden life. The people gasped. The curator squeezed my shoulder, his hands cold but steady. Photographers came, then reporters. Suddenly, people wanted my story. But all those endless days alone didn't fall away. They pressed closer, sitting with me in each interview, reminding me what it had taken. Offers followed, other buildings, international invitations. I flew to Tokyo and then Lisbon, painting on strange glass in muted, icy dawns. Each city startled me. Their food, humidity, the way the sky looked unfamiliar. At night, I wore earbuds and listened to São Paulo radio songs about old houses and feijoada, singers with laugh-lined voices and sorrow cut with hope. I was busy, but loneliness clung. Fame never feels the way you expect. When invitations came for shows back home, I hesitated. My mother called. "We hear about you everywhere. You have fans, Edu." I could hear my sisters laughing in the background. Voices crumbling the old divisions. Paulo had lost his job at the port, but refused to take money from me, pride still a hard shape in his chest. There was a festival planned for spring, Bienal de Arte, right in Ibirapuera Park, and the organizer called, urging, "You're local, come home, show them." Walking through Guarulhos Airport felt surreal. The city, my city, was as vast and pulsing as ever. Neon slicing the nights, motorcycle taxis flicking past crammed apartment buildings, steam rising from pastel stands. They put my name on banners outside Ibirapuera. That was a shock. Crowds milled near the entrance in jeans and battered sneakers, parents herding kids snagging balloons, retirees perched on the low wall by the lake. I found my mother waiting near the entrance, clutching a paper bag of pão de queijo. My God. "You look thin," she said, hugging me hard. Something loosened in my lungs, the years between us melting for a moment. "Still painting," I shrugged. We walked the winding path to the pavilion. My father was there, weathered and silent, but this time he pulled me into a soft, awkward hug. My sisters arrived loud and bustling, slapping me between the shoulders, and even Paulo, who never liked crowds, showed up. Then came the others, neighbors from the old apartment building. Tony from school, grinning like we'd never drifted. Alessandra, the ghost of my flop, sweeping up in an expensive jacket, trailing 2 interns behind her. She had the same critical sideways glance, but now it landed uncertain. Maybe she wondered if today she'd have another reason to laugh. The organizers asked me to speak before revealing the new mural, a piece made for the park, sunlight reactive and delicate, covering the curved band shell by the water. I stood on stage. Staring out at the faces, the old nerves flickered, but something stronger steadied me. I had steel in my bones now, but my words were gentle. I failed a lot here in São Paulo. So many times I felt like this city wasn't listening. But failure is part of building something new. I didn't do this alone. My family, my friends, even those who doubted me, taught me what it means to hold on. São Paulo is tough, but it loves fiercely. There was no laughter this time. Just the low hush of crowd anticipation. When the curtain dropped, sunlight splashed through the pavilion's slats. Slowly, like dawn into dark, bursts of gold and carmine unfurled across the mural. People drew in their breath. The colors shifted, faces blooming in the light. Old neighbors, street vendors, my mother and the twins, Paulo laughing, all worked into the paint itself. The skeptics, Alessandra, Antonio, my uncle from the hardware store. Even Paulo saw the work swirl into life. Faces I'd painted from memory flickered back through color and sun, their skepticism dissolving into awe, and